Hello, kind people. This is Dmitry, and I would like to talk about three puzzles that appeared in the listener crossword in March. So there were four puzzles in total in March, and out of those, I think three that appeared have every chance to become puzzle of the year. So while we're only in March, we already have three, absolute top quality puzzles, and this is somewhat unusual. And so this was a very good month for people interested in thematic cryptics. So I'll talk about them, and there might be more sort of rambling, philosophical, general chat about cryptics. And maybe I'll actually start with one point that sort of just occurred to me recently, and I kind of want to retract my statement from a couple of years ago. So a couple of years ago, I was already very much into the listener, and I thought this is so strange that this is still very much of a niche thing, and then there are way more people that solve daily puzzles in the Times or the Guardian or Independent or Financial Times, any of those dailies that produce top quality cryptics. Then there are regularly solving thematics like the Listener and the Magpie. And I think what I said at the time was something like that learning cryptics is a bit like learning a foreign language, but once you learn that language, you probably want to read the best literature that's written in that language, and the Listener is the best literature that's written in that language. And then recently I started doing dailies a little bit more than I used to, and now I think I understand why some people do the dailies and do not venture into thematics. And it's not so much because of the difficulty, but mainly I realized that this is a slightly different sport for maybe for most of the people, apart maybe from, I don't know, Mark Goodliff and a few chosen others, in that when you solve thematic cryptics, you do have to use the dictionary, and you do have to use the dictionary quite a lot if you are a normal person. Whereas when you do solve the daily, it's something that you can do without a dictionary, and it's a different type of pleasure that you get from it, especially if you manage to learn this trait and so that you solve the cryptics kind of in flow, that you don't have to stop and think about every clue, but you kind of recognize the familiar patterns in it and just write it in and move to the next one, and sort of it flows. And this is a different type of, I don't know, maybe you could compare it somehow with rapid chess versus classical chess. I don't know. But, and oddly enough, like this is why it was more or less not the case for me 2 years ago, because 2 years ago it was not good enough to solve daily cryptics without a dictionary. So for me, as a non-native speaker, this was more or less the same. I mean, especially the Friday editions of the Times crosswords are on the same level of difficulty for me as the Listener, probably even now. And so, but the payoff is infinitely greater in the Listener. But if you can solve daily thematics without a dictionary, then it is just a different sport. But anyway, I still think that you totally should try thematics, even if if you're not scared to open the big red book now and then. And now it's easier. It's not as difficult as it was 30 years ago. Now you can have it in your phone, and that helps a lot. Anyway, back to the puzzles. So there are three absolutely outstanding ones. One is called Lavish Border, and it's by Hawk. The other is Forever by Twin. And the third one is Plaincloth by Paddock. And there was also a very nice fourth puzzle in March called Lost by Dash, but that is very much kind of what is in the Magpie would be an A grader, so it's a very easy puzzle, and thus maybe somewhat less memorable. So let's talk about these three. I guess I'm not going well, I'm definitely not going to go over the detailed solution for each of them. So what I am going to do is maybe explain the how the puzzle works. Oh, sorry for that. That was probably a horrible noise. So I'm going to explain how the puzzle works and maybe show a few clues and then show the end game, because that's where the payoff is and that's why they're beautiful. So I'll start with Lavish Border by Hawk. This is one of those puzzles that are not only very beautiful, but also are crazy hard. Or at least they were for me. As you will see, maybe you could be a little bit more lucky with the sequence of clues that you manage to solve first, and then you might be able to start filling the grid earlier, and once you start filling the grid, it becomes considerably easy. So the grid looks like this. As you can see, every single entry is 6 cells long, and there is this space at the top. So let's read the preamble. In each set, there are some sets. So typically, you're used to having cross clues and down clues. You don't get it here. You get set A and set B. And so in each set, clues are given in normal order. So that means that, okay, so if there were some clue numbers written in the grid, so this would be, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and so on. And so, the first across will be the first entry, which might be in set A or set B, and then it will be followed by 11 across, 12 across, and so on. But now they are spread between 2 sets. And then once all the crosses are done in each set, you get to the downs. So let's see how those sets work. So in set A, answers are entered with 1 or, for the cross clues, 2 non-consecutive extra letters, which never coincide with an extra letter in a crossing entry. The wordplay leads to the entered 6-letter form. So the answer is shorter than the entry, and the wordplay leads to the entry. And then there is one special entry, which is the name of a mathematical group whose elements are represented by the string. So this is the end game of extra letters in other entries. So this doesn't make much sense until you get to that. And somehow the strings of these extra letters in other entries must be entered in lowercase. So that's set A. So let's have a look at some clues from set A and see how that works. So I solved some of them here. So let's have a look at maybe this one. So, all eviscerated, ex-husband berated bistro, that's the wordplay. And that tells you that you have to cut out the internals of all 3 words, ex-husband berated bistro, and then you get this. And then if you doing cryptics on a regular basis, you might recognize that there is a type of tuber called addo, and so these 2 B's are these extra letters. And so once you do that, you realize, okay, this is the cross clue. And then this one, sent up luxury boxes once set in air to fully provide. So to fully provide is to equip. So this is the answer, and this is the definition side of thing. And then pi, P-I-E, is luxury, and so sent up pi, so pi going the other way around, boxes or contains once said in air. So quor is an archaic Scottish word meaning said, like, quoth the raven, but quor. Sorry, not qua, quor. And so reversed pi boxes it, and you get equip plus the extra O. So this there is 1 extra letter here. And once you get to this, you then realize, okay, well, this then must be the down clue because there is only 1 extra letter. And then you immediately realize that all the other clues here are down clues. Similarly, all those cross are the cross clues. And then here you have a gray area and you don't know. And of course, you can't even put any of this in the grid yet because there is this set B thing as well. So how does set B work? Each set B clue has a letter misprinted in the definition. The corrections describe one of the strings which must be highlighted. So presumably out of those strings of extra letters from the previous bit of the preamble. And then the 8 unchecked letters on the perimeter I jumbo over 2, so more endgame stuff. Let's forget about that. So let's have a look at some of the set B clues. Clean swings hung with this. So here you need to get, so swings is an anagram indicator, you need to anagram the word cleans and you get lances. And lances is something that you can hunt with. So it's not hung, it's hunt, and so T is a correction. So this is a much more sort of common and easier set, right? Because, well, it's a much more common gimmick leading to an easier set because at least, you get the words as answers. Or, for example, here leads to actual rise in operatic sophistication if, so you get A-R-I-O-S-E, you get the first letters of this, and they are singers' pieces, so you need to do this to make it correct. So why is this crazy hard? Well, mostly because of set A, and especially because of these crosses in set A, which are only 4 letters long, but they have 2 extra letters, and they're non-consecutive, so this wordplay is not easy at all. And then also because you just don't know where to put things in the grid. I believe I could go over, how I started putting things in the grid, but I think it's probably going to be a too lengthy video if I start doing that. But basically what you do is you realize at some point that you just start counting how many downs you have, and gosh, it's been 3 or 4 weeks ago by now. I kind of keep forgetting. So let me just show you the end game, because although part of the beauty actually comes from figuring out how to start filling the grid, and I wish I could prepare a little bit more for this video and actually show it to you, but let me show just what the end game is. So this is how it actually all works. So I think like this is where the crosses stop in set A, and the downs begin, and this is what you get if you start filling this in. So as you can see, you get a bunch of, so all the extra strings, they are these things here. And one of them is special. This is the special entry, and the special entry is freeze. So it turns out that there is this mathematical object called freeze group, of which there are like 7 types of freeze groups that describe all the possible kind of sets of symmetries in this one-dimensional, well, not one-dimensional, in this sort of 2-dimensional objects which have translational symmetry, and then they might have other symmetries on top of that. And so if you can realize all those possible freezes with the lowercase letters of English alphabet, which makes it absolutely beautiful. So as you can see, for example, here you have the sort of the most symmetric of all of them is this O, which I think is called spinning jump, and that has like all kinds of symmetries. It has translational symmetry, it has vertical refraction, it has horizontal reflection, it has rotation, so it has everything. So now, for example, this jump, it has translations, and it then has horizontal reflections, but it doesn't have any rotational symmetry. It also has, you can sort of shift and reflect. So this is yet another one. So for example, this thing here, a hop, it has just a translational symmetry, and I think that's it. So now a siddle, it has a translational symmetry, but also you can, shift and then a horizontal symmetry as well on top of, sorry, a vertical symmetry on top of that. Now, this thing here, you can shift and reflect horizontally. That's another one. And what else can you do that you can't do here? Okay, so this one, you can also shift and reflect horizontally, but also you can rotate it. So that's another one. And so which one do we need? Well, we need the one indicated by the extra letters in set B, which says rotates, yes, reflects, no. So we need the one with no reflections, but with a rotational symmetry. And that is this thing here called spinning hop. And so, as you can see, you can rotate it, and so it has a rotational symmetry, but no matter how you shift, you then can, reflect it either horizontally or vertically to get to the same pattern, so it doesn't have that symmetry. So we need that, and then we need to get to this bit of a preamble. So the 8 unchecked letters on the perimeter, a jumble of a two-word term for design of which solvers must sketch above the grid. Something, an example that corresponds to the highlighted string, so to this string. So the letters on the unchecked letters on the perimeter, these ones, they give you G, E, E, K, E, R, E, K, and you can anagram that to Greek key. And Greek key is a pattern that exhibits precisely this type of symmetry. So as you can see, you can rotate it, but there is no reflection symmetry. And obviously, as all this freezes, it has translational symmetry as well. So this is what you had to sketch, and I think this is absolutely stunningly beautiful. Just, the execution, the level of difficulty, my type of puzzle. So I know that not everyone likes mathematical themes, but yeah, when they're executed at such style, I think it's great. And I think the best part is just, realizing that you can just illustrate this mathematical concept with lowercase letters of English alphabet, and then actually just put it in the grid in such a beautifully sort of symmetric way. So that's one puzzle. Let's move on to the next one. The other two are much simpler, so I hope it might be, shorter parts, but they're, as beautiful as this one. So this next one is called Forever, and it is by Twin. Twin being the pseudonym of Colin Thomas, who is an absolutely, star of setter. He got Ascot Gold Cup twice in the past and won Puzzle of the Year in the Magpie as well, at least once, maybe more. And so, yeah, I mean, we know we are to expect great puzzles from Twin. So let's read the preamble for that one. So here I'm not going to, spend too much time on individual clues. So this is already the grid filled, and I'm just going to show the end game. But, as you will see, we are going to have to look at the clues in order to see the end game. Each clue needs a word removed to enable solving. The extra word's initials spell out what could replace each entry to give a second grid of real words or names, 5 of which give a thematic source and 1 abbreviation, and an instruction relating to both grids. Submit the first grid having carried out the instruction. the Chambers Dictionary is the primary reference. Oh, and I just realized that I didn't fill this second grid for here, which is a bit annoying, but we might do it on the fly. We'll see. It probably will take too long, but maybe I'll pause the video and I will fill it. So the clues for this one, okay, so first of all, the preamble is remarkably short for the listener these days, and I think this is very much of a plus. The other thing is that the clues here are not hard, and then the puzzle in general is not hard. I think if it were like the Magpie puzzle, it would get a B. And I wonder how it's going to play out at the end of the year, or rather, next March when voting for the puzzles of the year, because I think there is like this common idea that you remember the harder puzzles more, and so they are the ones which typically get to win Ascot Gold Cup and Puzzle of the Year for the Magpie. And I think that this might be an exception. I think I definitely see it, making top 5 and potentially competing for the highest spot. So we'll see how it goes. So let's see how some of this works. Utopia said not ending and cruel space. So here the extra word is cruel, and as you see, I already indicated its initial letter. And the way it works is, it's the answer is heaven, which for which utopia is a definition, and heavy said, and you get it without the last letter, and then en is one of these typographic spaces, the one which is occupied by the letter n, I think. So so that gives you heaven, and so on. So fairly simple, fairly typical, one of those typical gimmicks, you have an extra word and their initials spell something, so, nothing too exciting yet. But let's now read this message. So the message should tell us how to replace each entry to construct a second grid of real words or names. So the message that you get reads clue initials other than these, and then you need to highlight unchanged cells. And then you realize that actually there is a connection between the length of the answer and the number of letters in the clue. And you realize that the number of words in the clue. And you realize that the number of words in the clue is always 1 greater than the length of the answer. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And so when you take this extra word, all the others give you, if you look at their initials, they give you usniers, which is a word. I can't remember what it is, but I have a dictionary here. As you know, it's now on your phone. So it is any member of the Usnea genus of lichens. Oh yeah, I remember. That's a moss of some sort. Yeah. So, and then here you get, so here losing is the extra one, and you get Matthew. And so this thing, instead of heaven, you can put Usneas here, and instead of miasmas, you can get Matthew. And as you can see, like this M is the same in both grids. And then instead of warmly 11 across, you get 20. And so you put 20 here. And I mean, not only, and that gives you a second grid. So if you think about it from the constructor's point of view, that means that you have a constraint so you have to write this clue, right? So you have to write this clue for the word warmly, and you have to write this clue that it has exactly 7 words, and these words are giving you the initials spell out 20, and plus there is an extra word with U, and the only freedom you get is that you can put this word beginning with U anywhere in the grid. But this sounds like a crazy hard constraint. So, and this is what Twin is famous for, to be able to produce a reasonably well, surfaced clues. I think here some of the clues might be, a little bit of a stretch from the surface reading point of view, but still, they do read fine. Tenderly women equipped Nelson's third-year uniform. That is a sentence in English language. But, it has to be a valid cryptic clue. It has to read fine, and it has to have these amazing constraints that it has to begin, the letters have to begin with 20. And so once you do it, even if there were no highlighting requirements afterwards, and if this was the only thing in the end game, this was already going to be very impressive. But what makes it even more impressive is that there is actually an end game, and it is actually about something. So specifically, I think I do need this second grid in order to show what's going on. So I might actually pause now, and I'm going to fill this second grid to show what's going on. Okay, so this is another empty set, and I'm going to write the second grid here, and I'm going to come back once I'm done. Okay, bear with me. Okay, so I hope we're back, and I hope you can see the second grid filled. So I can probably switch between them. And as I switch between them, you might spot that some letters stay the same, and while all the others change. So, and if you highlight those letters, you can see that precisely this message, my words will never pass away, you can find this message in both the second grid and the original one. And in the second grid, you can also find Matthew. You can find Matthew 24. Probably I should highlight it in the other one, 35. And, if you go and find the full quote from the Bible, so Matthew 24:35 goes as heaven and earth will pass away, but my words will never pass away. And as you can imagine, as you can get in the first grid, you get heaven and earth here. And so I actually had a brief conversation with Colin about this puzzle, and because I suspected that what Colin wanted was actually people to submit the second grid, which displays Matthew 24:35 and the message, but does not have heaven and earth, which will pass away. And I asked him why that was changed, and the answer is rather amusingly, but actually absolutely logical. I just didn't think about it. Is that he had a test solver, which is a very good setter in his own right, and his test solver spotted the clue gimmick very early. And if you do that, then you can avoid, if you are to submit the second grid, then you can avoid solving, you can produce the submission without solving any single clue. And so that was probably not ideal, and so it was changed to this. But this is absolutely stunning, right? So you have to produce two grids that not only have like all this thematic material in it, Matthew 24:35, heaven, earth, and they only are, the same in this exact positions with the message that you want. But then, so both grids are symmetric. Twin values grid symmetry, very, very high. So for him, the grid symmetry could not be sacrificed for anything. And then you have to write this clues with this amazingly difficult constraint, or at least, to a non-setter that I am, it looks amazingly difficult. So I think this is yet another stun and definite contender for puzzle of the year. And finally, we get to the third puzzle, and the third puzzle is by Paddock. Now, some like personal story here. So Paddock's puzzle was, so when I started doing the listener in 2021, the very first puzzle I did was by a setter called Nud, which is a pseudonym for John Hood. And Nud's puzzle was about a poem by Thomas Hood called November, or maybe it wasn't called November. I think it was called November, but it was a beautiful but also a very gentle puzzle, reasonably accessible. And I was very lucky, I think, that I started that week and not the following one, because the following one, the very next listener that I tried after, being hooked, was the one by Paddock. And the one by Paddock was called Weaving, and it was crazy hard. So there were, I think, across clues, let me picture how it was. So the across clues were actually, so for each row you had 2 clues for 2 words, but the clues were actually interwoven. So you had like one big sentence and some words in it were actually from one clue, and you had to isolate them, and they were not just next to each other, they were weaved. And all the other words were from the clue to the other word. And that was, I think, the crosses, or maybe the downs. And the other ones, but they were entered normally. So once you solved those, when you disentangled those 2 parts of the clue, you could then enter them normally. And for the downs, the clue just had 2 clues and they were side by side. So they were not interwoven, but the answers had to be entered in this interwoven fashion. And the whole puzzle then, the end game was that this was about the weaving competition between Arachne and Athena, and and in the end game you had to turn Arachne into a spider, as in the myth. That was very beautiful, but really, really hard. And that was the last puzzle by Paddock, since 2021. And so now, so he's making a comeback, and it's a very welcome sight. This is not as hard as that one, but also very, very beautiful. So let's see how this works. How do I scroll here? Sorry. Oh, there we go. Okay. So let's read the preamble, and then I'm just going to show you the end game. 6 clues. Oh, okay. And I will make some comments about the clues. So 6 clues need a letter removed to enable solving. These letters can be arranged to form the name of a prototype that must be written below the grid. Solvers must highlight the name of its familiar derivative in the grid. This establishes the context for all of the non-perimeter cells with the 2 unclued entries in accordance with the title. The Chambers Dictionary is the primary reference, as usual. So all of the clues apart from the 6 ones are normal. And this is yet another kind of comment here that typically, I think as a solver, you don't really place, when you rank a puzzle, I think it's not your first consideration, the quality of the clues itself. Because the thematic puzzles are about the endgame, so they are about something, they're about their themes. And it's nice to have great clues, but it's not sort of a necessary requirement for a really good thematic puzzle. But here the clues, I think, are very good and very tricky, and I think if this set of clues would make a very decent, Friday daily times cryptic, because they are plain clues apart from those 6 that need a letter removed. And I don't know what makes them so difficult, but I think it's when you're a cryptic solver for some time, you get used to certain ways. You look at, say, broadcast, and you think homophone straight away. And let's have a look at this clue, for example. Hum on STV's broadcast frequency. So STV is a Scottish television, and so the definition is a Scottish word for hum. And broadcast it's not a homophone for some frequency. Frequency here is just abbreviated to F, and to broadcast is to sow, to spread. And so soph is a Scottish word for hum. Maybe we can look at some others. I think I highlighted some of them which I thought were particularly impressive. Let's see what else I can. Okay, so here is maybe another one. Okay, this is just a beautiful little nice endlet. What's in the heart of those enamored and betrothed? And the answer is love. And indeed, all these 3 words, they have O, which in cryptic is love, as their heart. And this is probably one of the easier clues. They also get rather, thematical, politically recently, so very beautiful surfaces. Here is another beautiful endlet, like shell from goosery, right? So like is EG, shell from goosery is GI, and the whole thing is eggy, like shell from goosery. So yeah, this is just a very, very good set of clues. Probably if I were just to look at the clues themselves, this was the most memorable set of the year so far. And now let's get to the end game. So some clues have this extra letters. So let's have a look at some of them. For example, this conifer wood decorated a regionally dull dresser. So here you need to remove I from conifer and you get confer. And if you look in chambers, one of the meanings of do is to confer. And then wood decorated originally is WD, the first letters of wood and decorated. And doubt is dull dresser. And even that was not easy, because I had this, and when you see this, you're trying to think, how does that work? You think you're looking for a conifer, and you're thinking that, you need to decorate this DD, which is originally dull dresser, with something which is a wood. And there are some 2-letter words for wood, I think, but it just doesn't work. So, and the very tempting wrong ways to parse the clues were here present for almost every single clue. Okay, but anyway, so from these extra letters you get Likoex, and you could anagram them to lexico. And lexico is a prototype for a much more well-known game called Scrabble, which you can see in the grid here, and you have to highlight that. And this establishes the context for all of the non-perimeter cells with the 2 unclued entries in accordance with the title. So how on earth does that work? What is the Scrabble game? What does the Scrabble game have to do with any of this? So non-perimeter cells are obviously, all these cells here, and there are, if you count them, so it's a 12 by 12 grid. So when you remove the perimeter, you get 10 by 10, so there are 100 of them. And if you look at the Scrabble rules, you would realize that a game of Scrabble is played with exactly 100 tiles. And those 100 tiles, they have a certain distribution. Let me get to that distribution. So they have 12 E tiles, 9 A and I tiles, 8 O tiles, and so on. And this is exactly what is happening among those 100 non-perimeter cells. So E occurs exactly 12 times, and so on. And there is like one Z, one Q, one whatever. What other things are ones there? K, X, and J. And there are 2 unclude entries, and we still haven't filled them. So these 2 are unclude. And so once you count all the Scrabble tiles, you realize that 2 I's are missing, and also 2 blanks are missing. And so you have to somehow fill them, and you have to do it. You have to fill the 2 unclude entries in accordance with the title. So the title is plain cloth. And so the natural assumption here is that plain somehow defines the first unclude entry and cloth defines the other. And the only thing I could come up with, and I got stuck here actually, and my friend actually told me what to do. So, because I confidently put them there, so I got the correct submission, and I was ready to submit it even if I didn't understand why on earth I am doing this. But then I was trying to just come up with a word where, as in Scrabble, this blank tile substitutes any single letter, and, you get poignancy, for example, and here you get maybe hetzing or betzing or metzing. But those things don't correspond to plain cloth in any way. And then I said this all, and I mentioned that I have these blank cells, and I have to, and I mentioned it to friends, and they and one of them sort of immediately said, "Oh, but this is like point blank, and this is a blanketing, and point blank, if you look at in the dictionary, actually has plain as its one of its meanings, and blanketing is a cloth." And so I think this is very beautiful. And also from the constructor's point of view, I think, again, like I'm not a set. I don't know how easy it is to come up with a grid with this constraint. Also with a symmetric grid, with this beautifully symmetric unclude entries. But I imagine it should be not easy at all. This is the first Paddock crossword in 4 years. So, well, I don't know, listener pipelines take a couple of years probably out of those, but still extremely impressive. So yeah, fantastic month of March for the listener enthusiasts. Let's see how the rest of the year goes, and I hope you enjoyed it. And yeah, if this is of any interest, start doing these thematics. They're not as hard. Well, some of them are, but this was very doable, and the twins one was just easy but stunningly beautiful. So yeah, no reason not to. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.